Are Carly and Doug the only two characters that can that's a decision that can be made and you lose one and gain the other? Is there anyone else you can just wholesale lose?
Ben?
He can die in episode 4, but you can save him, and then he ends up dying in 5.
Okay. Do you feel like that's sort of like an easy way for Telltale just kind of be like, well, maybe carrying through the decision between these two characters into the next 2 games would be pretty challenging, and they just kill them? Like, it was one of the biggest decisions you made in the entire series, and they just get killed.
I think you don't see it coming, Ben. I think it makes it more of a curveball and a better plot point. I think you really start to lose hope a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you just get this no one is safe feeling, and I was afraid to step into episode 5 because I knew it was not going to be happy. But for some reason, they still managed to make you terrified, and did some really tragic things, but then you still felt okay with it.
What is the name of the character that shot Carly and
Lily.
Lily?
So did you guys leave her in the RV?
Yeah.
Did you let her go in your RV, or did you?
No, I kicked her the hell out.
I kicked her out. I was like, I can't have her around Clementine.
And Clementine's arc was interesting too, where she was frightened, she found safety in Lee, and then toward the end, she started getting a little crazy.
Yes. Very rebellious almost.
Yeah, and just kind of going off on her own, even after an instance where you had her do something and there was a zombie there and she almost died, yet she made that same choice. Almost seemed like she was losing her mind a little bit, which is going to make the series moving forward really interesting.
Yeah, Tim, you're kind of hitting on this element of do your choices really matter in the game?
I love being at the wheel and everything, but sometimes it's like you're going to get to point A to point Z throughout the entire game, and it may change a little bit within, but the main points of interest are the same.
When you're sitting across from that guy and he's kind of taking the walkie-talkie man, I can't remember his name, but we'll just call him that. He's throwing all these decisions that you made at you, but I didn't like it almost because he was blaming me for the food, but I didn't take the food in the car because of Clementine. And he's like, well, still, this happened to me, so I'm in. I was like, but I didn't do it.
And he layers on all these other things that you did, which you were just sort of.
He's like, oh, you took her. You took her with you. Why'd you take her with you? Well, why is he going to leave her at the house with a guy with an injured leg?
It did remind me a little bit of when you go into the Psycho Mantis fight, and he's like, oh, I see you like Castlevania. Yeah, you like all. It was it felt like they were reading my memory card off to me, and so it was like, oh, these are all the choices you made. Isn't this cool that we remembered this?
Yeah.
But some of it was maybe pushed a little too far.
Yeah,
in terms
that's
of
how I felt.
Yeah, but that's not really what happened. That's not really. You're blaming me, and I didn't do that.
I agree with that. I thought what they did with the car was really cool, though, and kind of flashing back to the moment where.
Well, we knew that car. We knew. Everybody was like, well, what? Nothing ever happened with the car.
Exactly.
I remember this is a big criticism was because I actually sat there after that decision. I was like, I hope that's not going to bite me in the ass.
At the end of the game, they even do a Clem will remember that, and I wonder if that means that some of the decisions we made, that stuff's still going to come back and bite us in season 2.
Looking at it more, I feel like we kind of started shaping Clementine a bit because Lee was very much there showing her the way, helping her grow up through this zombie apocalypse. So I feel like a lot of maybe who you were as Lee is going to now impact how she is into season 2.
She's going to have a chainsaw and a sawed-off shotgun.
Well, let me ask you guys a question about 5. Did you cut off Lee's arm?
I did. That was one of the most grueling and beautifully shot scenes.
I have to talk about it because I knew it wasn't going to make a difference, but I was like, but what if it does?
There's another instance in that universe where a character has to cut off his hand in order to save himself from it. So again, it's another thing, having read the comics, that I knew you can stop this thing if you catch it in time. So that weighed in my thought there and my decision.
They even give you choice for which yell you want to do, as it's getting chopped off.
So gosh.
I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I thought if I was too crazy about it, that maybe they would have stopped cutting off his arm halfway through, which would be the worst thing.
You play the rest of the game with half an arm
it's just dangling off.
You just wrap it around your neck. Just
helicopter it.
I looked away as they were doing it.
You turn into Tails.
I try to look back, even though it wasn't really that. I just couldn't even handle it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm just going to let him cut it off.
It was pretty gory at some parts, yeah.
Yeah, no matter what, we're talking about spoiled stuff, so no matter what, he's pretty much toast.
Yeah.
Although there's that scene at the end, what'd you guys do? Did you have Clementine shoot him, or did you spare him?
I had her leave him.
You did?
Yeah.
Really?
I didn't want her to see him come back as a zombie.
That's exactly
I
right.
thought that would be so torture because she had just seen her mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want her to go through that again with Lee. It hurt me, but I had her shoot him, and I knew that was going to be traumatic for her as
But that's
well.
the other, yeah, because that's the other thing is like, well, like shooting him is that much better? Like
I
that's still
see,
traumatic.
but he's going to be a
That's what I'm
different person as a zombie. I just didn't want to even do it.
I think the point was, in my view, was that he was harmless at that point anyway. He was chained up, and if she just got the hell out of there, she wouldn't have to see him, and that's what you see. She leaves before he turns, so she doesn't watch him turn.
So if they make a season 2, maybe they'll get a zombie Lee.
That would be awesome.
That'd be cool.
That would be so cool.
What choice did you make with Clem with the walkie-talkie man?
It's interesting because like you can kill him there, and then Clementine doesn't have to. My Clementine shot him.
Yeah.
And then I had Clementine kill Lee, so she's basically going to be a serial killer.
Yep.
What I'm hoping for.
Who do you think was on that hill?
Krista and Omid, I think. I hope, because I felt like they wanted me to pick Krista and Omid, so I did, but I felt like I didn't feel like I knew them well enough yet. It just felt too soon. Like I felt like they were loyal and stood by me, so that was like good enough, and they feel like good people, but I don't know how if they're going to be able to really protect her or not. I
mean,
know.
they set it
felt
up pretty well. Like,
forced that you went with them.
Lee said it himself. He's like, "Oh, you two have been rock solid since day one," and they respond. They're like, "Yeah, it's only been this is day 3. Like, you don't even know us." But within that time, they proved more consistent than Kenny throughout like his first 3 days. Kenny was out already
and that's the
kind
other
of.
thing too. I felt
And
like
Kenny, he wussed out on me a few times.
Yeah,
like,
Kenny
he was
back
very
and
up
forth.
and down.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He,
He
he
really-
would go after me for stuff, and I'd been like, I've been on your side because I really liked him in the beginning, and I thought, oh, you know, like,
Well, there's the
they're
whole
gonna be
Larry
buds.
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And
That
then,
or times when he's like, "Hey, dude, I'm about to die. You should save me," and he just ran off like an asshole.
Yeah.
We were buddying up, and then he just took off. I'm like, I'm going to trust Clementine with him? Pfft, no. No.
Screw that guy.
Yeah.
I'm glad he died.
No. The way that they made Ben and Kenny kind of make up, and Ben kind of laid everything out there for him, I thought they did that really well, and it wasn't cheesy or anything, because I was looking at those two characters, I'm like, one of them's going to kill the other. I thought
I'm
they
just
handled it
wondering
well.
if you didn't have
And,
Ben,
yeah.
what happened? I mean, Kenny wouldn't just jump down there by himself, or maybe he was suicidal enough that he did that. But I mean, like, it's weird because a lot of people did not save Ben at the end of episode 4.
And in hindsight, it always kind of confused me a little bit. So Ben joined up with them in like, was it 2?
Yeah,
two,
And
two.
he said he didn't even know if his family was alive or dead. Like, why wouldn't he ever make a push? Like, if you were in that situation, would you stay with these people? Or would you try to like say, hey, we're going super far away for Clementine's parents. Can't we just like swing by my place and see if my family's alive, guys, real quick, please?
The way that 5 ended with that last scene with Clementine they were talking about, I think we're going to control her next game. I think Lee passed the torch on to Clem, and that we will be Clementine next game.
Well, do you want it to be 5 years have passed, or do you want it to be no time has passed? And you get
well,
to find
I
out
don't want
exactly
time
what
to
You
pass.
happened.
can't
because
have
you
you can't have any time pass. It has to show you who was on that hillside.
Yeah.
Well, but you would find out in retrospect.
Maybe.
Like if it was 5
Well,
I
And
kind
they
of
could do
want
it through flashbacks, I suppose. But
My theory for the longest time was that like Clem is going to have to kill Lee. I thought it was going to be more dramatic or whatever, and that
I thought it was going to be more dramatic. That was really
I
dramatic.
thought that it was going to be
scene.
like he is turning and coming
Guys,
after her.
I was
No,
a
I like he was
mess
chained to
during
a
that
radiator. He's
scene.
chained to a radiator no matter
I
what,
know,
right?
but,
I
you
was
thought
figuring.
he was
I thought
gonna
maybe
hurt
he was
her.
going to be mobile and after her, and she's going to be stumbling, and he's like the last
Okay.
boss or whatever. But I thought maybe
I like how
thought
he
maybe
helped her
after
through
that,
the
last
Lee boss.
I thought maybe
The
after,
third form of Lee.
yeah, but then I imagined like, oh, that's being this
He's changing again.
this hardening moment for her, and then flash forward, and she's kind of like that character in the Walking Dead comics with like the sword. I can't remember her name, but like
Shone?
yeah, just super badass and just like
Shone? I don't
girl raised in a zombie apocalypse. Let's catch her when she's like 18 and play as her, and it's by Platinum Games. And
Well, we've
yeah.
talked about that before. It was like that would be kind of cool to watch this character. Like you saw him as a kid,
Yeah.
as an innocent person, and then they go through this harrowing experience. Like you watch them grow up, and so
Yeah.
I kind of would like to see.
Me
like,
too.
let's go 5 years ahead. Let's see how she is as a teenager and how badass
Yeah,
she gets.
same reason I want to see Carl like 5 years from now in the Walking Dead comics. You know,
Yeah, I think that kind of breaks what The Walking Dead is and what Kirkman has established. I agree, it's a cool idea, but they're just going point to point. That would get way past where they are in the
Yeah.
comics and the TV show. Secondly, I think that they painted Lee as the protagonist, but I think this was Clem's story all along, more than his. And I think this series that they're doing might be Clem's. And I agree with you, Kim. I think we might be controlling a crazed little girl in the next
Oh
game.
boy.
how'd you guys feel like? All right, well, I'll just say, like, I cried at it, you know, at the ending. Like, I wasn't, like, sobbing, but, like, games have given me lumps in my throat before, but I've never actually, like, experienced this, like, you know, like, oh, okay, well, those are tears. And that's never happened to me before. And I've talked to a few people that have experienced that, and it's the first time in a game ever. And I don't know if you
I'm
guys...
going to support you with that. I've had
Tell us
games...
about your parents, Tim.
I've had games get me misty-eyed, but I was streaming tears throughout that
Live
whole...
streaming to you?
Yeah, live streaming. Like, I should have set up a camera
Yeah.
because I've never had that emotional reaction to that degree.
What
With
moment
any
was it?
game that I had played. It was throughout that whole final scene as Lee is kind of saying goodbye to her. You know he's dying. You know that this little girl is now going to be on her own without him. And especially when I made the decision for her to shoot him, I've never cried
That's
like
awesome.
that before.
I'm
And
super happy you
I'm
cried.
that girl who sat through Titanic, never shed a tear. Like, I don't really cry
Just,
too
like,
much.
fist pumping at
I'm
the
like,
end.
whatever. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
this isn't so bad.
Get
And
out of here,
this
boat.
game. Oh my God, that scene. Like, I have not had that emotional of a reaction to anything yet.
I didn't cry. It was mostly a consistent stream of the F word in different pitches. You know, mostly to Telltale Games. Just a message to you, F you. Yeah, I couldn't believe what they were doing at certain points.
Even from the end of 4, when you see that Lee's bit, I was like, you kind of knew it was coming, so I think that helped in just in terms like I had time to mourn, let's say.
I was
But
also
yeah, they
relieved
did.
that it wasn't Clementine. I mean, as bad as that sounds, when Lee got bit, I was like, all right, I think Clementine is now going to be safe, and I don't have to worry about that happening. Like, I don't know why. It just...
Did you really think that?
Yeah, I was like, because they're going to kill off Lee. Like, that was my whole thing. Like, this was about, you know, Lee making that sacrifice for this little girl and, you know, just everything that he did to protect her, and now he's the one who's going to die. Like, I didn't think they would throw two big deaths at us, is basically what
Just
I'm saying.
everybody's dead at the end?
And once, like...
Omid's the one who
they
powers
and I
through?
knew they were doing season 2. I didn't know if they were going to continue with the same cast or not.
See, I thought that was a smart move on their part to announce season 2 before they finished season 1, just so you started thinking that, like, well, where could this go? Are we not going to have closure? Are we going to have some? Yeah, one thing I think they did really well with choice in the dialogue is not just good and bad or funny or in that gray zone, but choosing dialogue options that are for the better interest of Clem, not your character necessarily. You know, I think they went beyond what we've seen in games, and I think that opens the door for some really interesting possibilities for all types of games moving forward.
No, I just watched an episode of the Walking Dead movie, or the TV show last
already
night.
seen the
season
movie?
2. Yeah, it's great. You're gonna love it.
Such a hipster.
But the thing is like there's more moments like that where it's just like Rick was about to make a decision, and then suddenly Carl is there, and it changes everything. The fact that you could decide whether you'd pull the trigger or not is just, it's so cool, and that's enough gameplay that I'm not going to bellyache because there's not enough sniping missions. Well, I'm happy with the amount that's in it because you get to make those decisions.
That's an interesting question then. So how are they going to do season 2 then? Or how are they, like, if you control Clem, is it going to be as emotionally impactful? Are you going to have like a 4-year-old little boy become her sidekick? Or
I don't
like,
think
like a
we're
little
controlling-
No, I
monkey
think because
now
you'll be
that-
making decisions as a young girl, and I think you don't want to make those
I don't know
tough-
anything about that though. I'm just
saying.
those sound like the worst
the
decisions.
innocence, like, you know what I'm saying? Because if you have to, like, go all violent on something, you're like, oh my God, that's really going to torment her inside to have to do that.
I don't
and stuff
know-
like that. So it might make you stop.
And to your point, Ben, you don't know anything about being a convicted killer either. You know, like...
Well,
But like, I wonder if people would still have as strong of an attachment with Clementine in the second season if you're playing her, and it's not this.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, they're never, who else are they going to make you? I feel like if they bring another character in, they're going to have a really hard time with it for you to control, because I feel like we were really attached to Lee, and I feel like no one's really going to measure up to Lee when you go into season 2.
Wasn't that tall?
I feel like I just don't trust her with anyone that's not Lee. I don't know if they're
Okay.
going to build that up. Like, if they would have been building characters, and I feel like they were maybe trying to do that with Krista and Omid, but I feel like it didn't work for me, because I don't feel,
like those guys.
I don't feel attached to them at all.
Omid-
Like, I feel
Omid's
like if they
awesome.
die, I don't care.
By
like,
the way,
it's weird.
did Omid remind you at all of Jeffem? Did he look at all to you? He looked
I
a
thought
little like
about that.
Jeffem.
And he's
to me.
sarcastic.
But did anyone get the vibe that Krista was pregnant? Like, I thought there was going to
yeah.
be a revelation throughout
yeah.
the whole thing, and they never went
Because
there.
she doesn't drink. And
Well,
like,
and then
there's
when
this-
they're in,
That could be
in
a seed for
episode
the next
4, there's the ultrasound that she looks at, and she gets really weird in that whole
I
moment.
didn't notice that. Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. But didn't she take like a long pull from like a bottle at one point?
Yeah,
but
she
she
did that
hesitated.
in 5, but
Yeah.
like that was the only moment because before then she had done like she was getting like sick and throwing up
Yeah.
and other stuff, and I thought the whole
I
time
thought
I
she
think
was
she's
pregnant,
probably
too.
because she was very interested in Clementine, which seemed weird to me at first. I was like, uh-oh, she's either crazy or. And then it, like
Hungry.
all these clues started going. Well, that's what The Walking Dead does to me. I start to analyze. And I'm like, she's got to be preggers. And
I want an orange, but I'll take a clementine.
That could be something that's planted. They could be on the hillside, and that could continue. That would be
That'd be interesting.
crazy if
Zombie
they went up
baby.
through the birth.
Clementine wants a little brother.
see, there you go. There's her little sidekick,
Yeah.
baby. You won't do that in front of a baby,
Dragging
will
a
you?
baby in a wagon
That sounds great.
through the zombie apocalypse.
And they need a little pet robot.